under the twin suns of Arivos. 4. Laughter carried through the orchard domes like music. The colony's children darted between rows of luminous fruit trees, their voices echoing off glass and steel. Dr. Mara Quinn paused her data tablet to watch them from the shade of a biodome strut. Their laughter reminded her of home, of oceans and skies humanity had left behind. She smiled when one of the little ones waved to her, a boy with mismatched socks and boundless energy. It was, she thought, a rare moment of peace. The peace ended with a sound that was not a sound at all, an immense vibration that thrummed through the bones and silenced the birds. Shadows rolled across the dome, blotting out the suns. Every head tilted upward. Through the curved glass roof, something vast moved against the light, smooth and angular, like a fragment of night come to life. Quinn to control. She snapped in her wrist link. I have an unidentified craft descending over Dome 4. Static answered. Then a low hum, building until the glass overhead trembled. The children screamed as the light dimmed to gray. Energy rippled across the orchard floor, weaving a luminous net that shimmered like liquid metal. Mara lunged forward, but the field expanded faster than thought. She hit it with both hands and was thrown backward, breath knocked out of her. Inside the net, 24 children froze in mid-cry, their outlines refracted like ghosts in water. A woman's shout carried from the far side of the dome. Parents sprinted toward the net, hurling themselves against it. No use. The field sealed with a pulse of blue light, and the figures within began to rise. The entire cluster lifted from the ground, effortless, beautiful, horrifying. Mara scrambled to her feet, voice raw. Cancel atmospheric shielding. Open the dome. Someone did. Air rushed out in a shriek. Fruit leaves tore from their stems, and the children vanished upward through the widening gap. The alien craft's underbelly yawned open to swallow them whole. Moments later, silence. The net, the ship, the children, all gone. Mara stood trembling, dust swirling around her boots. Behind her, a parent collapsed to her knees, sobbing a child's name. Another man struck the ground with his fists until they bled. None of it felt real. By nightfall, Arivos 4 was in lockdown. Every communication relay flared with emergency codes. Every orbital scanner searched the void. Mara gave her statement twice, then sat alone in the observation hall watching the stars. Each pinprick of light mocked her. Somewhere out there, those children breathed recycled air inside a foreign hull, frightened and alone. When Captain Elias Ward arrived, the room changed temperature. He was taller than she remembered, shoulders squared in a uniform that still bore the burn marks of too many campaigns. His eyes were the same, though, gray, steady, unreadable. Dr. Quinn, he said quietly. I came as soon as I heard. She rose to meet him. You think it's a Virelith? It fits their pattern, he said. Silent entry, precision extraction, clean exit. They've taken specimens before, but never children. Her jaw tightened. Specimens? You mean people? He didn't argue. Command wants your analysis. You've studied their neural lattice biology. Maybe you can tell us why. Why? She repeated. Because they think they can. Ward looked toward the stars. Then we show them they can't. In orbit, the flagship Resolute waited like a predator coiled in the dark. Within hours, reports from neighboring colonies confirmed it wasn't an isolated event. Only Arivos 4's abductions involved the young. That detail spread faster than any official statement. On the interplanetary nets, outrage turned to fury. The word children triggered something ancient and unstoppable. While analysts mapped the Virelith's likely vector, Mara poured through sensor data. The energy residue of the containment field carried a signature, ionized xenon laced with bioreactive charge. She traced it to a specific class of Virelith research vessels, the Seraphim pattern designed for behavioral study. The implications chilled her. They weren't just harvesting bodies. They were testing emotions. Ward entered the lab as she finished the report. He skimmed the first lines, lips pressed thin. They're experimenting. On fear responses, Mara said, human empathy fascinates them. They want to understand what makes us risk everything for each other. He looked up. They just found out. For a long moment, neither spoke. Through the viewport, Erevos, for rotated beneath them, a fragile marble of silver clouds. Ward's reflection appeared beside hers, hard and tired. When I joined the Corps, he said, they told us to be ready for anything. But this, he shook his head. There's no protocol for this. There is now, she said. The intercom chimed. All units, stand by for fleet transmission. The Admiral's voice filled the deck. To all human sectors. Civilian casualties confirmed. Children confirmed missing. The Council has authorized full engagement under Article 17. Ward exhaled slowly. That's the declaration. Mara met his gaze. Then we're at war. He studied her face. You don't look surprised. I'm a scientist, she said. But I'm also a mother. That admission hung in the air. Ward said nothing, only nodded once, sharply. The soldier and the scientist understood each other perfectly. As the fleet mobilized, civilian channels erupted with a single message repeated across every wavelength. Bring them home. On the dark web of colonist networks, someone condensed it further, turning fury into a promise. You took our kids. The phrase burned its way across the system like fire in dry grass. Mara couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the boy in mismatched socks, mouth open in a silent cry as the net carried him away. She imagined him calling for her, and she wondered if sound could travel that far. She spent the night calibrating a biological frequency array, tuning it to detect the specific resonance of a child's fear. When the sensors finally pinged on a faint echo from beyond the gas giant's orbit, her breath caught. Ward, she called through comms. I found them. Within minutes, he was beside her, scanning the readings. Signal stable. For now. It's faint but structured. Human biosignatures inside a Virelith hull. He keyed his communicator. Control. Prep the Resolute for pursuit. Target coordinates uploading now. The bridge lights dimmed as engines roared to life. Outside, the stars bent into streaks of white. The ship dove into hyperspace. Mara stared at the viewport until the distortion settled into silence. They're just children, she whispered. They must be terrified. Ward stood beside her, arms folded. Good, he said quietly. Terror cuts both ways. She turned to him, startled. He didn't smile. They wanted to study fear. They're about to learn whose it really is. The stars reappeared, distant and sharp. Somewhere ahead lay the alien ship, the stolen children, and the beginning of a reckoning. The hum of the engines filled the room, low and relentless, like a heartbeat that refused to die. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. For the first time in nearly a century, humanity spoke with one voice. The abduction of the Erevos. 4 children had shattered political divisions, erased trade rivalries, and silenced propaganda networks. Every human world, from the industrial moons of Vega to the drifting habitats of Titan, watched the same broadcast, a trembling image of the alien ship as it fled into the void, carrying the children away. The fury that followed was not orchestrated. It was instinctive, primal, and absolute. Captain Elias Ward stood in the Resolute's command chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of tactical data. His jaw was tight, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. The light from the screens carved harsh lines across his face. Around him, officers murmured updates in clipped voices. The fleet was assembling, 100 ships forming a single spear aimed at the unknown. Yet Ward felt no triumph. He knew what it looked like. He also knew that this one would leave scars deeper than any before. Dr. Mara Quinn entered quietly, carrying a data slate pressed to her chest. She looked smaller under the command deck's cold lighting, her hair pulled into a severe knot, fatigue shadowing her eyes. Still, there was a steadiness in her posture, a defiance he had come to recognize as distinctly human. They're calling it Operation Emberglass, she said, her voice soft but clear. Command approved the name an hour ago. Ward raised an eyebrow. Emberglass. Something that looks fragile, she explained, but cuts through anything if handled right. He gave a faint, humorless smile. Fitting. She placed the slate on the console and expanded the display. A three-dimensional map of the Erevo's system appeared, red markers pulsing near the gas giant Obsidian. Our biofrequency tracker caught another echo, she said. The same neural resonance as before, but stronger. The Virelith ship must be in low orbit, using the planet's magnetic field as cover. Ward studied the projection. Risky place to hide. Storms down there could tear a cruiser apart. They won't risk moving until they finish whatever they're doing, she replied. They think we're still too afraid to come for them. He glanced at her. Are we? Mara didn't answer immediately. Fear isn't the absence of courage, she said at last. It's the reason courage exists. Ward nodded, appreciating the honesty. Prepare the boarding team. We move within 6 hours. As she turned to leave, he called after her. Mara, about the message command wants broadcast before we engage the threat. What do you think? She hesitated. Send it, she said. Let them know exactly who they provoked. An hour later, every Virelith frequency in range received a single encrypted transmission. No elaborate declarations, no diplomatic posturing, just a human voice recorded and sharpened like a blade. You captured human kids. Congratulations. You just signed your death warrant. The silence that followed was almost holy. Across the human fleet, the phrase repeated itself in the background hum of comms, muttered by engineers, whispered by pilots. It was no longer a statement. It was an oath. In the hangar bay, preparations were relentless. Soldiers in black exo-armor checked their weapons with mechanical precision. Drones hovered overhead, calibrating targeting optics. Ward walked among them, silent but watchful, the old habit of a field commander who trusted only what he could see. He stopped beside Rafe Vega, the combat engineer, who was tightening the seals on a pulse breacher. Last-minute changes? Ward asked. None, sir, Vega replied, not looking up. Explosives are stable, power reserves topped off. The new plasma cutters will slice through Virelith alloys like butter. Good, Ward said. No mistakes once we're inside. Wouldn't dream of it, Vega muttered, the corner of his mouth twitching. Across the hangar, drone pilot Talasun guided her reconnaissance swarm through simulated entry paths, her fingers dancing over the hollow controls. You sure about this vector? She called out. Obsidian's gravity well will play hell with the drone's telemetry. Then fly better, Ward said, without looking back. She grinned. Copy that. It wasn't camaraderie exactly, but something rougher, trust built in fire and necessity. These were people who had seen too much to fear dying. The thought comforted him more than it should have. Mara watched from the observation deck above, her hand pressed to the glass. The last time she had seen this many ships gather in formation was during the Titan rebellions, a conflict that had cost millions of lives. Back then, humanity had fought itself. Now, it was united, and that was infinitely more terrifying. She wondered if the Virelith understood what they had awakened. Her terminal pinged. A new communication, unauthorized but familiar. The signal identifier read, Sorry Virelith Research, Node 7. Mara's breath caught. It was one of the alien scientists. She opened the channel. A distorted voice filled the air. Human Quinn, you study life. You must understand, we did not know. Mara's pulse raced. You abducted children, she said coldly. You knew enough. They were unshielded minds, the voice said. We sought only to see how you endure pain. By fighting, she said. You'll see soon enough. Before she could ask more, the transmission ended. She stared at the dark screen, heart hammering. The alien's tone had carried something unexpected, fear. She found Ward on the bridge and told him about the message. He listened without interruption, then said, They're nervous. Good. It means they bleed. Or it's bait, she countered. Doesn't matter. We're still going. The countdown ticked toward 0. The Resolute's engines hummed, a vibration deep enough to feel in the chest. Outside, the fleet assembled in perfect symmetry, warships, carriers, and support vessels locking into a single formation. Through the viewport, Obsidian loomed, a swirling sphere of storm and lightning. Somewhere beyond its turbulent veil, the Virelith cruiser waited. Ward's voice carried through the command deck. This isn't a rescue. It's a message. No one touches our children and walks away. The bridge crew stood silent. Even the AI system seemed to hold back, processing his words. Engage engines, he ordered. Stars blurred into lines as the fleet plunged toward the gas giant. The hum grew into a roar, then softened again as they broke through the outer atmosphere. Lightning danced across the hull, painting the metal with flickering silver veins. Mara felt her stomach twist. She thought of the children, terrified, caged, breathing recycled air. She had no faith in soldiers, but she believed in humanity's instinct to protect its own. Maybe that was enough. As the fleet neared target range, alarms flared. "Contact!" shouted the sensor officer. Virelith ships emerging from the magnetic field. 3. No. 5 signatures. Ward's eyes narrowed. Let them come. The Resolute's guns pivoted in eerie unison. Outside, space ignited with light as the first volleys exchanged. The alien ships moved like living shadows, gliding rather than flying. But the humans were relentless. Every shot they fired carried fury distilled to its purest form. The deck shuddered from impact. Mara gripped the console, watching readouts blur. Their shields are adapting fast. Ward barked commands. Redirect power to forward batteries. Tala, deploy the drones. Through the chaos, she saw something almost poetic. The unity of purpose, the precision of movement. Every soldier, every system, every heartbeat synchronized toward a single goal: bring them home. When the last alien ship broke formation and retreated into the storm, the bridge erupted in tense silence. They had won the first encounter, but it was far from over. Ward leaned over the console, studying the damage reports. "Hull integrity at 82%, he said. "We can still move." Mara approached, eyes fixed on the holographic image of the gas giant. "They're hiding in there," she murmured. "Buried in the storm. Then we'll drag them out," Ward said. The stars outside seemed to pulse with quiet menace, and the ship's engines began to hum again. Low, steady, relentless. The hunt had only just begun. The Virelith cruiser drifted in the storm's shadow, its hull shrouded by electric clouds that flashed like veins of fire. Inside, the air pulsed with a low mechanical hum, cold and sterile. The containment chamber held its captives in rows of transparent cells. The children huddled together for warmth, their breath fogging the glass. They had cried themselves to exhaustion, voices hoarse, eyes hollow. A boy named Eli clutched a threadbare toy, whispering a promise to stay awake so the others wouldn't feel alone. His words vanished into the constant hum. At the control console, Sarika watched the readings of emotional resonance spike and fade. Each surge of human fear fascinated her. The patterns were erratic, like storms inside storms. Yet something about them unsettled her. The Virelith were supposed to be immune to empathy. It was said to be a defect long purged from their evolution. But when the smallest human began to sob, she felt an ache behind her chest cavity, a phantom pain her species didn't have words for. She reached out, almost touching the glass before pulling back, ashamed of the impulse. Behind her, the commander entered. Tall, angular, his armor glimmered like liquid obsidian. "Report," he said in the harsh rhythm of their tone. "The subjects are stable," she replied, "but their emotional responses are volatile. Our containment fields cannot suppress their neural output for long. They are young. Their minds are primitive," the commander said. "Once we complete the resonance mapping, we will purge them." Sarika hesitated. Purge? That was not part of. He turned sharply. "Do you question the directive?" Her throat tightened. "No, Commander." "Good," he said, stepping closer to the glass. "Human empathy is a contagion. We will learn from it, then erase it. They would do the same to us." Outside, thunder rolled through the storm. The alien's reflection warped in the glass, surrounded by faces too small and too human. Far above, the Resolute broke through the atmosphere. Lightning cascaded across its shields, painting arcs of white and blue. The storm battered the hull, but the ship pressed on, carving through chaos with surgical precision. Captain Ward stood at the forward viewport, his voice calm over the calm. "All units, maintain course. We've located the target. Mara Quinn watched the readings on her console. The biological signatures pulsed stronger now. Tiny heartbeats clustered like stars. They're alive, she said softly. Ward nodded once. Then so are we. The infiltration pod detached from the Resolute and plunged into the storm. Inside, Ward's team prepared in silence. Rafe Vega checked the pulse breacher. Talasan adjusted the drone control rig. Mara secured her breathing gear, trying not to imagine what waited below. 5 minutes to hold contact, Vega announced. Ward's eyes stayed fixed on the storm outside. Remember what we're here for. No civilians left behind. No prisoners taken. The pod shuddered violently as it broke through the Virelith's atmospheric shield. For an instant, gravity twisted. Then there was impact. The hull beneath them screamed. Sparks burst around the breach line. Cutters engaged, Vega said. Brace for entry. The metal peeled open like skin. They dropped into the corridor beyond, sterile, silver, humming with alien power. Ward raised his weapon. Form up. Quinn, stay behind me. They advanced through the ship, moving in practiced silence. The corridors were lined with organic filaments that pulsed faintly, like veins. The smell was antiseptic and wrong. At each intersection, Tala's drones swept ahead, mapping the terrain. Every shadow seemed alive. When they reached the containment chamber, Mara's breath caught. The scene mirrored her nightmares. The rows of cages, the children pressed against the glass, eyes wide and wet. For a heartbeat, she couldn't move. Mara, Ward said quietly. She stepped forward until her palms touched the barrier. It's all right, she whispered, voice trembling. You're safe now. We're going to take you home. The children stirred, hesitant at first, then louder, hope breaking through exhaustion. The smallest reached toward her, tiny fingers pressing against the glass. She wanted to hold them, but the barrier vibrated with an electric charge. Can you shut it down? Ward asked. Working on it, she said, scanning the interface. Their control systems use resonance locks. I can override, but I'll need time. Then you'll have it, he replied. Vega and Tala took defensive positions near the doors. The hum of approaching footsteps echoed down the corridor. The Virelith commander entered with a squad of soldiers, each one towering and faceless behind mirrored visors. He spoke in flawless Terran standard, his voice low and metallic. You shouldn't have come. Ward stepped forward. You shouldn't have taken them. The commander studied him. You risk your species for a few offspring. Irrational. Inefficient. Ward's tone was steady. It's what makes us dangerous. Without another word, the alien gestured. Energy bolts cut through the air. Ward's team dove for cover, returning fire with disciplined precision. The chamber erupted into chaos. Flashes of light, shouts, the hiss of burning circuits. Mara ducked behind the console, shielding her face as debris rained down. Vega hurled a pulse grenade. The blast shattered the floor plating, sending 2 Virelith sprawling. Ward charged forward, his weapon glowing white-hot, and drove a plasma blade into the commander's chest. The alien staggered, black fluid seeping from a wound. He grabbed Ward's wrist, forcing him closer. You think this victory matters, the commander hissed. You are one world. We are 1,000. Ward twisted the blade. Then you'll die 1,000 times. The alien collapsed, armor cracking open like glass. Mara slammed her hand against the final sequence on the console. The containment field dissolved with a surge of blue light. The children stumbled free, coughing and crying. She knelt to gather them, checking for injuries, whispering comfort she didn't feel. Sarika appeared in the doorway, trembling. Her armor was unarmed, her hands raised. Ward leveled his weapon instantly. Don't shoot, Mara shouted. She's the one who sent the message. Ward hesitated, eyes narrowing. Explain. The alien's voice quavered. I tried to warn you. I couldn't stop them, but I can guide you out. Why help us? Mara asked. Sarika's gaze flickered toward the children. Because I felt their fear, she said. And it hurt. The admission hung in the air, raw and strange. Ward lowered his weapon slightly. Lead the way then. But if you betray us. I won't, she said. Not anymore. They moved through the corridors in a tense column, children clinging to Mara's coat, soldiers covering every angle. The ship trembled around them. The power core was failing. Ward suspected the alien commander had triggered a self-destruct sequence. When they reached the docking bay, explosions rippled through the decks. The air shimmered with heat. Tala's drones fired covering bursts, clearing their path to the pod. Vega carried 2 children at once, his armor scorched. As they climbed aboard, Mara turned back. Sarika stood at the threshold, watching them. "Come with us," Mara urged. The alien shook her head. "My kind would never let me live. But I will stay and make sure none of them follow." Mara hesitated, then whispered, "Thank you." The pod door sealed. Ward hit the launch control. Flames swallowed the docking bay as they shot into the storm. Through the viewport, the Virelith cruiser imploded in a bloom of light, fragments vanishing into the clouds. Mara held a child against her chest. He clutched her sleeve, whispering, "Are we safe?" She looked at the dying light below. "Not yet," she said softly, "but we're on our way." Ward stared into the storm, jaw set. The battle wasn't over, not by a long stretch. Somewhere out there, others like the Virelith were watching, and he intended to remind them exactly what humanity could become when someone heard its own. The pod rose through the churning clouds, fire giving way to stars. Above them, the Resolute waited like a guardian in the dark. The children slept at last. The war had just begun. The pod broke free of Obsidian storm and emerged into the quiet vacuum where the stars seemed almost merciful. Below them, the wreck of the Virelith cruiser burned in fragments, scattering like ashes in the void. The hum of the engines softened as the Resolute drew them in, tractor beams locking with mechanical precision. Inside the pod, the air smelled of ozone and smoke. The children huddled close to Mara Quinn, their small faces pale and streaked with grime. Captain Ward stood near the hatch, helmet still on, armor dented and blackened. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken exhaustion and disbelief that they were still alive. When the pod docked, the airlock cycled open with a hiss. Medics flooded in, their movements brisk and quiet. They guided the children out gently, scanning for injuries, whispering reassurances that sounded rehearsed but kind. Mara followed them to the corridor, unable to stop herself from counting each small head. 23. She had memorized the number before they launched. Every one of them was here. She leaned against the wall, eyes stinging. For the first time since the invasion, she allowed herself to cry. Ward approached, removing his helmet. His hair was plastered to his forehead, his face drawn and pale, but his voice was steady. "You did it," he said. "We did it," she corrected. Her voice cracked on the second word. "But it cost us." He nodded. "Always does." They walked together down the corridor toward the command deck. The hum of the engines thrummed beneath their feet. Outside, the gas giant storms faded into shadow. Mara looked at the viewport as they passed. "Do you think they understood?" "The Virelith?" Ward asked. "They understood enough to be afraid. I think they felt something," she said. "At least one of them did." He gave her a sidelong glance. "You mean the scientist?" "Sorry, Cop." Mara nodded. She stayed behind. She didn't have to. Ward's expression hardened. Maybe she thought dying there was easier than living with what she'd done. "Maybe," Mara said quietly. "Or maybe she wanted to make sure we got out." He didn't argue. They reached the command deck as the Resolute's crew rose to their feet. The bridge was alive with quiet triumph. Muted cheers, weary smiles, tears quickly wiped away. Ward raised a hand for silence. "Set a course for Arrivos 4, he ordered. "We're bringing them home." The navigation officer's fingers danced across the console. "Aye, sir." Coordinates locked. As the ship turned, the comm officer spoke up. "Incoming transmissions, sir. Every human channel is trying to connect. The entire system is watching." Ward looked at Mara. "You should be the one to tell them." She hesitated. "I'm not military." "That's why it should be you," he said. "They'll need to hear a human voice, not a soldier's." She stepped forward, her reflection caught in the glass. The comm light blinked, waiting. She drew a deep breath. "This is Dr. Mara Quinn of Arrivos 4, she began. To all colonies and ships within the Alliance, the children are safe. The Virelith vessel has been destroyed. Humanity is secure. She paused, voice thickening. They wanted to understand what makes us strong. They thought it was our weapons. It isn't. It's this. She glanced toward Ward and the bridge crew. It's the way we hold on to each other. The way we refuse to let go. When the transmission ended, the silence was replaced by applause. Quiet at first, then building, echoing through the corridors. But Ward's expression remained unreadable. He looked out at the stars as if waiting for something else. Hours later, after the adrenaline had faded, Mara found him in the observation deck. The children were asleep in the infirmary, sedated and safe. She stood beside him, watching the streaks of light as the ship slipped into faster-than-light travel. "They'll make stories about this," Ward said. "They already are," she replied. "I've seen the feeds. They're calling it the night of human wrath." He gave a humorless smile. "Catchy. It's more than that," she said. "It's a warning." He turned to her. "You think the Virelith will come again?" "They'll think twice," she said. "But they're not the only ones watching." He nodded slowly. "Good. Let them watch." The hum of the ship filled the silence between them. Beyond the glass, space looked infinite and fragile. Mara folded her arms. "What will you do after this?" He shrugged. "There's always another fight." "There doesn't have to be." He glanced at her, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. "You really believe that?" "I have to," she said. "Otherwise, what was the point of saving them?" He didn't answer, but the question lingered. When they reached Erivos, the colony gathered on the landing fields. Families pressed against the barriers, eyes wide with hope. The ramp lowered, and the children stepped out one by one into sunlight. The first was Eli, clutching his toy, blinking up at the sky as if he'd forgotten what it looked like. Then came the others, thin, frightened, alive. The crowd surged forward, parents collapsing to their knees, screams turning into laughter. Mara stood at the base of the ramp, unable to move, watching reunion after reunion like a series of small miracles. Ward descended beside her, his uniform cleaned but still scorched at the edges. The applause rose to a roar. He looked uncomfortable in the noise, as if praise didn't fit him. A woman approached, Eli's mother. She reached for Mara first, hugging her with desperate gratitude. Then she turned to Ward. "Thank you," she whispered. "All of you." Ward nodded, words failing him. When she was gone, Mara said, "You see, this is what victory looks like." He watched the families gather their children, the laughter echoing across the field. "It's not victory," he said. "It's survival. Victory comes when no one has to fight for it." She smiled faintly. "Then maybe that's your next mission." He looked at her, really looked, and something softened. "Maybe it's ours." That night, long after the celebrations quieted, Mara returned to her quarters. She opened her report for the council and stared at the blank page for a long time. Then she began to write. She described the fear, the rescue, the sacrifice of Sari Ka, and the unity that had bound humanity together. Her final words were simple. "Empathy is not weakness. It is our sharpest blade." She sent the file, then stood by the window, watching Erivos 4's dawn rise over the horizon. The suns lit the fields with gold, and for the first time since the abduction, the world felt whole again. On the Resolute's bridge, Ward watched the same sunrise. He replayed the battle logs, studying the Virelith frequencies. Beneath the static, a faint signal flickered, a fragment of alien speech, half broken by interference. He amplified it until the words became clear. "We see you. We remember." He saved the file, but didn't send it to command. Some truths, he thought, were better left in silence. Outside, the sky brightened. Humanity had survived another test, and somewhere in the dark, its enemies learned to fear compassion. The message had been delivered, written not in treaties or codes, but in fire. Ward turned from a viewport, the light catching his scars. For now, the war was over. But the promise endured, the kind that didn't fade with victory or time. If you captured human kids, humanity would come for you. Always.